not everybody is willing to put that work in. So
Mm.
if you're willing to put that work in, remember that you're special, because like 9 out of 10 people won't put that work in.
Today, I am so excited to introduce to you an inspiring founder who turned a personal pain point into a globally loved brand. Jennifer Bailey is the founder of Calla Shoes, a company born out of her personal struggle to find stylish, comfortable shoes to accommodate her bunions. What started as a quest to find the perfect pair of wedding shoes has turned into a thriving business that serves women in over 90 countries around the world. With ethical production in Portugal, a thoughtful all female team in the UK, and designs led by celebrities like Helen Mirren and Tamara Mowry, Calla Shoes is redefining what functional footwear looks like. In today's episode, Jennifer offers tons of practical advice and resources for not only footwear brands, but fashion brands alike. So even if you're not a footwear founder, I highly recommend that you listen to this episode. Jennifer gives advice on building community, product development, and leveraging PR and marketing strategies to scale a niche brand. Friend, you do not want to miss this episode. And the reason why it's actually one of my personal favorites is because Jennifer is so generous with the information she shares. Like, I literally feel like this should have been a paid experience because the information she gives is so valuable. So much so, for those of you who may be on a commute or not in a place where you can take down notes, I've compiled a list of the resources she shared on today's episode into a PDF. So when you're done listening, make sure to click the link in the show notes and you'll be able to download the resources there. So without further ado, here's my episode with the incredible Jennifer Bailey. Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I am so excited to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but you are our first footwear brand on the podcast. So
All right.
I'm so excited to get some insights. But I think first, if you can just share with me the background, how the brand came about, where this idea came from.
Yeah, so my background is in fashion or footwear. It's actually a marketing background. So I'd worked in various marketing roles as I was growing up, like post-university. But the brand came about because I was solving a personal pain point. So I suffer from this foot condition called bunions. And because of the way that the bunions change the shape of your feet, finding shoes was just really hard, like almost impossible to find shoes that not only fitted, but didn't cause pain and that kind of look pretty at the same time. I mean, you could find shoes that were kind of granny looking, for want of a better phrase, with Velcro and like a bit ugly.
Yeah.
But I've always really been into fashion, and it definitely weren't the kind of shoes that I wanted to wear, especially in my 20s and 30s. So yeah, so I was planning my wedding. This is like 14 years ago I've been married. I
Hmm.
was planning my wedding. I had a really beautiful wedding in Tuscany, in Italy, and a really gorgeous dress. And then I thought, oh no, like how am I going to find a nice pair of shoes to match this dress? Because
Yeah.
I literally had one pair of heels that I bought from like there was a, a, a high street brand of wide fitting footwear, because like going back 14, 15 years, inclusive fashion was not really a thing. There wasn't really much wide fitting footwear out there. And I had this one pair of heels that kind of fitted, but they didn't match a wedding dress. You have this idea in your head of what they're going to look like, and this really long flowing Grecian style wedding dress and these big clumpy shoes. So I kind of had this light bulb moment then, because I was searching online and I searched high and low in the stores to find something that would kind of cover the bunion and not like dig into it. But most kind of strappy sandals aren't aren't designed for bunions. They just hang out the side, or
Yeah.
it digs in, or the leather's too hard, or wherever the strap is positioned, it's uncomfortable. So yeah, I literally just tried on hundreds of pairs of shoes. I was online getting down to page like 9, 10, 11 of Google, and the hope that somebody, maybe, I don't know, like in the Philippines or somewhere, may have just come up with some brand that I didn't know about, that wasn't in the UK, that I could buy shoes from, but there was just nothing out there. So that was like a bit of a light bulb moment for me. it wasn't really that at the time that I was thinking of starting my own business, I was kind of quite happy in my career, but it was more of I just turned around to my husband and made a flippant kind of comment saying, one day I'm going to make shoes for women who have feet like mine because it can't be that hard just to change a strap position and use softer leather. That's kind of all I thought in my head. And then kind of fast forward quite a number of years, I'd actually returned to work after my first child. In the UK, you can get like 12 months off. So I'd had 12 months off work, I'd gone back to work, and then kind of by accident got pregnant again. But then I was also in a redundancy situation. So I was just in this really stressful situation where I was going to lose my job. I was also
Mm.
pregnant. And then I just started rethinking about what I really wanted out of life and how I wanted to manage my career around my family. And so I decided to take the payout the redundancy payout that I got from my job,
Mhm.
to take a little bit of time out, bring up my baby, and set up a new business, this which was Calla. And I kind of had to kind of have a bit of a talk with my husband about how there was going to be a big drop in salary, and
Yeah.
that I was going to give myself a certain amount of time to make it work. But I really thought that I could make something of it. It was a way of weighing up all my different possibilities of what I could do at that moment in time. And I decided that starting my own business was like the best solution. God knows if it was. I mean, sliding doors and all that kind of thing. But here I am, like my daughter's 10 now. So it's been,
Wow.
yeah, so I feel like it's just gone like in a snap. But yeah, so it took about 2 years for development, like prototyping and sampling and that kind of stuff to kind of get a small collection together, 4 pairs of shoes, 4 styles. And then literally it's just been a journey from then to now.
Yeah, wow. I can't believe that you took that time of losing the job and being pregnant to decide to start a business. I'm
I know.
curious during that time because there's a lot of emotions that come with that, losing a job and also the emotions that are ever present when pregnant. I'm curious, like, what were the obstacles and challenges that you faced starting off with all of that going on and the pressure of, wanting to make it work?
I think the biggest obstacle was that I had absolutely no idea how shoes are made, and I'd never run a business before.
Yeah.
It's been a very steep learning curve, and still, I'm still learning every day. That's kind of that's the joy of running a business.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
there's no perfect. I'm here, I've made it kind of thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was it was just a really big learning curve, but I was fortunate because it wasn't a side hustle, unless you count like bringing up a bit, 2 children under 2 years old, a side hustle. But I was very lucky. I had good babies. And I think that when you have children, women are like, we're just superheroes in a way because you can absolutely take on and manage a lot more than I think any man ever could. Like, you
Mm,
know, just because you just can organize yourself, you can juggle lots of different things at the same time, have your laptop out, feed the baby, that's kind of that side of it was easy, I would say. I was out in Portugal 3 months, 4 months after my youngest was born, visiting factories. But before that point, most of it was like desktop work, which
hmm.
actually is the beauty of online. I mean, I'm 47 now, and back in the day, in my early 20s, there's absolutely no way you could set up a business like the way that I'd set it up because everything was so in person. You'd have to go to trade shows, you'd have to
Yeah.
go, you'd have to meet people like much more in person. You'd have to do all your research. You couldn't do your research online the way you do it now. There was no LinkedIn to jump on to try and find factories or agents to work with. So yeah, there were less obstacles starting it up when I did like 10 years ago than there would have been 20 years ago.
Sure.
And I kind of knew in my head that e-com was definitely the way to go. My background was digital marketing before that, but it was digital marketing that looks nothing like digital marketing today, but
Right.
it was digital marketing then. So I had a confidence in that, e-com was definitely the way to go for the business rather than traditional, set up my own store. Because it meant, when you're in a niche, you want to be able to reach as far and wide as possible. So I just had a gut that was the right direction. And so most of it was just done at home. I just spent 2 years at home. I mean, I got a part-time job where then I could work from home when my daughter was a little bit older, when she was like
Yeah.
about 11 months old. So I worked that around her and I worked it around the business as well until the shoes finally like landed at my house and I could
Yeah.
sell them. So yeah, so I mean, there's lots of obstacles, but nothing that's you've got to figure out what works well for you in your lifestyle. So I'd make there were certain business decisions I made that were based on my specific circumstances, which was I had two children under two, and I couldn't be away from them for lengths of time, so I couldn't be setting up a store, and I didn't want to be working weekends. I wanted that as family time. So
Hmm.
I never really see things as obstacles. They're just more problems that I haven't solved yet.
That's
That's
a
how
great
I look at it.
perspective. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that you set it up in a way that worked for you and your family, because I think that some people feel like, well, I don't have the capacity to do this right now. I can't give everything to it. They think they're going to burn out and all these things, but you can totally shape it in the way that works for you. Sometimes that may mean that it takes longer, which you mentioned that it took 2 years to kind of just start developing product. And I think sometimes people don't realize that the product development phase sometimes takes a lot longer than you may think. I hear a lot of designers saying, like, yeah, I want to start my line and produce everything by summer. And we're like in January. And I'm like, that's great, but take your time. So I'm curious, when you got started and you have this concept, what was the first step that you even took to start that development process? And how did you figure out how to go about that, considering that you did not have footwear design prior to this?
I kind of knew. I mean, I started with just a shoe that I thought if I modified this in this way, I think that it would work.
Hmm.
And then I contacted there's an association in the UK called the British Footwear Association, and they were doing like some free advice over the phone. So I rang them up, and this lovely lady called Lorna, I think her name was, told me about how shoes were made. Like she gave me just like a little, like she told me about lasts and about, materials and about components and about how much it might cost, about where in the world that you would get them made, about MOQs, just all the basics that I knew nothing about. So that was a great starting point. And then I also met with a shoe designer, a freelance shoe designer that I found on LinkedIn, I think, or maybe
Mm.
Google. I don't know where I found. I found two shoe designers, met with them. They were both quite local to me. So I found them like within a 30 miles away from where I lived.
Hmm.
And that shoe designer actually works for me full time now. So
Oh my gosh.
around area. So yeah,
For
she
all
must.
those years.
Well, she's not. She started off as freelance, did some of my first designs,
Uh-huh.
and then I moved to a different designer actually, only because she was quite expensive and I needed to save some money, so I moved to a cheaper one.
Uh-huh.
And then, because it's all about cost, it's
Oh, for sure.
all about bootstrapping. And then she ended up coming back to work for me, and anyway, it's a long story, but she is working for me full time now.
I love that.
Um, yeah, so it's we've always kept in touch, and it's developing those strong relationships at every point of your business journey. I would say is key to success because you might, I say you might not need someone at that point, but it's always worth meeting them and developing those relationships because you never know like when you might need them in the future.
Mm.
So there's lots of things that people that I've met years and years ago, and then it's only transpired how useful that they've been like at this stage of my journey. It's weird. So yeah, so I met her and then she did some designs for me. I'd been on LinkedIn. I'd found two agents, footwear agents in Portugal because that's where I decided I was going to start my shoemaking journey.
Hmm.
In Europe, MOQs are low. So if you go further to like Asia, then they're wanting, you know, 300, 400 minimum MOQs. So I just thought I'm going to start small. I didn't have the money to be buying loads and loads of shoes. And also I didn't want to take that risk. I wanted to start quite small with a small run, see
Hmm.
how it went and then perfect over time.
And what were the
Um,
minimums in Portugal, by the way? Do you remember
I
how
think
much?
at that time I only ordered 300 pairs of shoes, but It was over 4 styles and several colorways. So I think it was about
Okay.
35 pairs. It was really low. The thing about, I mean, I talked to quite a lot of footwear companies, startups now that, that are wanting help in launching their own business. And what you've got to understand is that factories aren't just there to work for you, they're there to make money. So
Right.
you can't just go in and demand that they start making your shoes. It doesn't really work like that. So I'd gone
Mhm.
out, met with an agent who introduced me to a few factories. One of the first ones I worked with, actually, they said they were going to make me samples, never did, just
Oh
ignored me.
no.
Another one that I started making samples with went under. They went into, like, the company went bust. I don't know what you
Right.
say in America, but it went,
They went out of business.
they went out of business. There you go. And then the fact one of the factories I've met in those early days is the one that I still work with now. So the factory that I work with, I've developed a really close relationship with them. I was very lucky because the owner of this factory, which is very unusual in Portugal, is also a woman.
Mm.
She really bought into the idea and the concept that I had because I was trying to make shoes in a completely different way to the way that they've been made before. So
Yeah.
you've got to think about it's a very traditional industry, footwear, and they've been making shoes in the same way
Hmm.
for hundreds of years. And then you come in and say, right, I want this and I want that. And they're like, well, we don't make shoes like that. Because I wanted them wider in the forefoot and standard at the heel. And they're like, well, we don't make shoes like that. So
Hmm.
it was hard to kind of get the factory to buy into what I was trying to do because it was going to mean a lot more work for them.
Yeah.
And initially they weren't really going to make any money from me, but they saw my passion, they saw my, like, insight into the potential of, like, how the size that Calla could be, and were willing to take a chance on me. So there'll be lots of people who, my agent said he doesn't just work with anybody, and the factories don't work with anybody. They've got to see that eventually there's gonna be some money in it for them, because they're not going
Right.
to make money from just 300 pairs of shoes,
Yeah.
and they don't know if they're going to ever get another order, because what if my
Hmm.
business doesn't work? But they really believed in me, and now I'm ordering like 1,000, 1,500 pairs a month. So it's like they believed in me for the right reasons, and that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard, like, just getting that initial relationship going and getting them to prioritize you as well. That took years. So you'd put your order in, my little order in,
Hmm.
and then you'd always go to the back of the queue. So they'd be like, yeah, yeah, we'll deliver on September the 1st. And then on
Yeah.
November the 1st, they're still like, just give us another week. So, so frustrating.
I bet that was a
Um,
shock for your first production run. Like, we were supposed to have somebody.
oh, it was awful. That was probably the most stressful bit of running the business, because what I decided to do is, in the time, and I would recommend this to anybody, in the time it takes to do the sampling and, building, the prototypes and checking them and all that that will take time, just because your first iteration is not going to be right. We're at the point of the business now where we can pretty much get certain things right, like first go, but generally it's second go, because the materials that they first come in, you're like, oh God, that actually doesn't work. We need to change it. So what I did was, in this 2-year period, I started to build my audience. So I set up a blog. I started blogging about just what I was doing that week, that I was just had a baby, and that I was going out to Portugal, and I kind of documented it, like
Mm.
why and how I was setting the business up. And I found it quite cathartic. I never really thought anything of it, but I did get a lot of people contacting me off the back of that. I was like number one on Google for a long
Wow.
time about, how to set up a shoe business. But what it also did was it attracted people to the story behind the brand.
Hmm.
And in the early days, you really need those ambassadors. You need those people who get what you're trying to do. So I turned that blog into a website, and I started directing people to it, to an email sign up. If they were interested in the concept, I literally had no shoes. I had drawings of shoes. That's all I had
Yeah.
at this point, and I just said, this is my idea. If you've got a bunion, if you really struggle like I do, then sign up, and I'll keep you informed of the journey. So I was bringing people on for a good 12 to 18 months before we actually launched, and the shoe factory were like, yeah, yeah, we'll deliver in. I think it was we'll deliver the shoes in September. That's what they said. So I started selling them on, like, a pre-sale. So it's a bit like a mini crowdfunding campaign, but
Yeah.
just a Kickstarter type campaign, but
Sure.
just for me. So I started that in August to this email list. I had like about 1,500 women on this email
Wow.
list
Okay.
that I'd built up. So I kind of emailed all of those and said, if you want to buy these shoes, you can order them now, and then you get a little discount, and then they'll arrive in September. So September came, no shoes. October, no shoes. And I was like, I was having like heart palpitations going, all of these people are going to think I'm a complete fraud.
Oh
I've
my
taken their
goodness.
money and I've not got anything to show for it. But actually, because I'd taken them on the journey,
Mm-hmm.
they were so lovely about it. And they were emailing me going, don't worry, Jenny, we know you're like,
Yeah, that's
we're
amazing.
like, we just want some beautiful shoes. We're waiting. And the shoes finally arrived in November, and it was just that was just wonderful, like being able to send them out. We pretty much sold out of the first collection like quite quickly.
Wow.
Like
And
a
that
bit,
just speaks to also like the building that community before you even have a product. And I find that people are like, I don't know what to post, but you built this authentic community on just like, let me take you along the journey with me. And so they were even so gracious because they felt like they were bought into your story, even
I
when,
know,
the product was delayed.
and it was completely free. I spent there was no VC money. I had no money. I
Hmm.
literally started the whole business on £35,000. That's all, like everything.
Wow.
That's buying the shoes, the website, everything. So yeah, it was very shoestring. So yeah, so you can build a community. I know other people that have done it on Instagram really successfully.
Hmm.
We've only been doing that in the last 12 months, like seriously, like we're trying to build a community on there. But wherever your people are, find them and
Yeah.
tell them about the business well before you launch. Because actually, what they'll do is they'll tell you what styles they want to see.
Hmm.
They'll tell you what colors they want. I launched a flat shoe because I thought people wanted heels, but then they said, actually, we want just a normal shoe that we can wear every day, a
Mm.
flat shoe. And I wouldn't have launched that without that
That
community,
feedback. Yeah.
that feedback. And then, so the power of feedback, I do like a personal email to even now to every customer saying, if you like them, let me know. And if you didn't like them, let me know. Just tell me,
Hmm.
because is there anything you want to see that we're not doing right now? Or is there anything you would change about the shoes that you've got? Because that just informs what's going on, that the
Yeah.
future of all of our collections. We can do what we think is fashionable at this moment in time, because we do try and follow the trends and then modify them. But people are asking at the moment, for example, for more low-heeled shoes. They don't want high heels. They want lots of little heels,
Hmm.
kitten low heel block shoes. But I think, other shoe designers in the real world, I don't know, your Christian Louboutins of the world and stuff, for a long time, they just were like, this is what we think women should wear, and just
Yeah.
forced it on them.
They're
Rather than,
informing.
yeah, rather than them informing us, like, we want to be more comfortable in this way. We've got this particular foot issue, and we want shoes made out of this particular material, and they literally, our customers literally inform every collection going forward. And I do this thing on Instagram Live where I do unboxing when all the samples come in, and
Oh, how
sometimes
fun.
in this room, and I'll open the sample boxes live. So people love that. They kind of like, oh God, I love that shoe, or we're not keen on that one, or and
Yeah.
I'll try them on and go, oh, this is so comfy, or this is not quite right. We need to change it. So really, even I hope it, whatever size business we get to, I hope that we're still really engaging our customers in and delivering something that they want, not what we think they want.
Yeah, and I think that's like the key to success too, is actually building what your customers want. Because I think as creatives, we can have all these ideas. Like you said, you even started with this idea because you had heels that you wish
Yeah.
would fit better, but then you discover like that's not necessarily what your customer wants, and kind of modifying the product to be what they want. I think there is room to inform a little bit, like, hey, let's introduce something that we think they would like, and also getting their feedback as well. And I think that makes all the difference. Building that community, getting their feedback, allowing them to inform because they're purchasing the product, right? They're the one who are buying it, so give them what they want. So I think that was such a powerful thing that you did from the very beginning and probably helped you see success a lot quicker than other brands would who were doing the opposite approach.
Yeah, no, I would never ever. I mean, I talk to some brands that have messaged me and saying, I've got 1,000 pairs of shoes in my garage and I've not sold any. What do I do? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, have you got an email list or have you got a community or how many followers have you got on Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't done any of that. We've just bought all of these shoes from
Oh
China
no.
and in like two colors and that's it. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. And then they'd be like, and I'm pregnant at the moment. So, oh, I've just had a baby. So I haven't
Uh-huh.
really got any time to dedicate to selling all these shoes. I just wanted to make them and thought, let's go.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't just apply to footwear, but when you've got a product that all your cash is tied up in, it makes it worth, you know, buying it up front without having at least a database that you can sell to, I think. Like in
Yeah.
software, like they always say in software, you build up your first, your beta triers before you launch your software because they're the ones that are going to be informing the products. But at least you haven't got a solid product that you have to sell. At least in
Yeah.
software, you can potentially change things. You can change the programming,
Mm-hmm.
you can change the code. I don't really know how it works, but in product, unless you're Kim Kardashian and you can just, put something out and people will buy it,
Mm-hmm.
you regardless of how good of a product it is, then if you're an unknown, then I think that you really need to be building that audience up. But actually, the Kim Kardashians of the world and what she called Kylie, the reason that their brands sell out first day is because they have already built their audience up.
Mm-hmm.
They've already done that work. So just think about it, like all these really good influencer brands, it's because those people have done all of that work building their community before launching the product. It's just the same thing.
Yeah, you almost have to become an influencer in your space in your own right.
Yeah, exactly. Or find somebody who's, if you can, or have a best friend who who is an influencer, or leverage other
All
people's
the
influence. Yeah, exactly.
audiences. Yeah. So I'm curious for your blog because you said that, you were able to build up your email list to 1,000 or 1.1 before you even launched. Was that traffic that was coming to your blog organic, or were you promoting the blog on other platforms as well? How did you draw on that customer
So
base?
bearing in mind that we're going back quite a number of years, and if
Yeah.
I was to do it again now, I would do it differently. But then I was using Quora and Reddit,
Oh, okay.
and
Which
yeah,
are
so
still
I would,
relevant today.
yeah, yeah, those two. I mean, Quora's gone a bit weird, but Reddit's still really relevant. But I was going into those forums and looking for conversations where people were talking about struggling to find shoes to fit. So I would
Mhm.
find these and I would go in and say, oh, hi, just I'm thinking of launching this company that might make shoes that you might like. If you're interested in finding out more, this is my website. Take a look at my story and sign up for an email. So I would direct people that way by finding out where, like I said, where my customers were hiding on the internet. I'd go out and find them in various forums.
Mhm.
Pinterest is a huge driver for me as well. Again, it's
Interesting.
free. So I would create a blog, and I think the best one of the best blogs I did was it was a picture of my feet in a pair of shoes that didn't fit, and then the blog was finding shoes when you have bunions, and then that kind of went viral on Pinterest and drove loads of traffic to the site because the only two types of people are going to click on that: somebody who has feet like mine, or somebody who has a fetish about feet like mine. Like those are the only two types of people I get like to the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
So Pinterest was fantastic for that. So I wrote all my blogs and promoted them on Pinterest. And then set up like an Instagram. There was no TikTok then. like TikTok since and Instagram since have been amazing at finding and building the community because
Yeah.
it really easily pump out loads of content. And if you go viral, we've gone viral several times on TikTok and on Instagram. You can reach millions and millions like so quickly and so
Mm-hmm.
easily if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And if you're putting out the right type of content that resonates.
Yeah. And I think something that was probably helpful for you too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but having that niche, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't just any shoe brand. This solved a specific problem, and there's a specific community that wasn't being spoken to in this space. So, how much do you think of a help that was?
Oh yeah, I mean I wouldn't have started a company if I didn't think I could be a leader in that space. I mean, I think as a shoe designer now or a fashion designer, it's really hard to find a space,
Yeah.
a clear space around you from a brand position, unless you're famous or you have a famous friend who's going to wear your stuff. And even then, it's still really tough
Mm-hmm.
because margins are tight and marketing is expensive and all of that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't have started it if I didn't think I could be a leader in the niche or the niche, as we say in the
Mm-hmm.
UK. So, and at that time, there was no one really doing what I was doing. I mean, there's lots of other companies that do wide fitting footwear now, but still, we still have carved out. I'm always conscious that we still have a space around what we're trying to do with the brand as compared to maybe other competitors. And it's
Mm-hmm.
only the same as what Stuart Wise, is it Stuart Wiseman?
Whitespin.
No. Yeah, them or any other kind of mainstream big brand. They're trying to create, carve out their own niche or whatever,
Yeah.
in terms of who they are as a brand and what types of shoes they make. But it's Sky Forest and fashion is so competitive
Mm-hmm.
that I think that and even our space, like comfort footwear that is fashionable, is getting more and more competitive as well. So, I try and stay ahead with really listening to the customers, adapt, making sure the shoes are on trend but meet customer needs, and then also like really looking at innovation and pushing the technical aspects forward so that we're never staying still because everything can always be improved, and I think that's really important, and that's how you have a USP like in a competitive marketplace. So yeah, it wouldn't. I would never have just started a footwear brand like that. That wouldn't have been my business idea. I only
Mm-hmm.
started it because of a personal pain point, because I knew nothing about shoes. And I think that naivety actually has helped. But yeah, it definitely, if I was going to start a business, it probably would have been in food or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Because people, when they come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm thinking of starting a footwear business," and I'm like, "Are you sure? Are you really
Yeah.
sure?" Like, 'cause it's
It's a
just
lot of
like this.
work.
The SKUs are horrific. Like that took me, especially because my background wasn't merchandising and buying either. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, that's like I've only recently hired a merchandiser buyer in the last 8 months. I should have hired that person 8 years ago
Yeah.
because
And for those who
because
don't know, what
uh,
do they specifically do?
so they look at my past sales in terms of like let's say a trainer in white, how many pairs I've sold within that week in which sizes. And then they use that data over a period of time. So they might measure it over like 6 weeks or 4 weeks. And so they can forecast how many you're going to sell in the next 6 weeks or 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So and they also would look at trends, what you're selling more of, what you're selling less of. Also looking at your gross profit margins and making sure that you're buying and selling at the right prices. So I was quite good at managing the critical pathway of like the shoes arriving at the right time, as long as the factory don't, deprioritize you. But I've been really bad at like buying the right quantity
Mm.
and the right size mix. And it is hard. It's not like we're small, medium, large, where a size 36 EU to a 42 EU. And then I was doing half sizes as well. And I still do half sizes in some of our styles. That's a lot. And if you're only buying 50 pairs, you know, then you can break a size within a week. Like you can just say you can sell out of all the size
Mm-hmm.
7, I mean, quickly. And then you've got to wait until the next delivery. And if I put an order in now to Portugal, it's going to be 10, 12 weeks before I can get a restock.
Yeah.
So the merchandiser has loves the spreadsheet, and she just constantly is looking at the numbers all the time for me, so I don't have to because it's just not my area of expertise. I love
Mm-hmm.
the PR and the branding and the marketing and the product development, but I was getting drowned in spreadsheets that I was really bad at managing. And
Yeah.
I had like expert help. I had consultants that I paid a lot of money for, like teaching me about what merchandising was, and they helped me build spreadsheets. But really, when you're at the size we are now, we needed that kind of in-house talent.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize, and what I've realized more now, is you just hire somebody 1 hour a week if that's all you need. You do like the way the world is at the moment, you don't need to pay for a full-time person or even a part-time person. So I found this lady on LinkedIn. She does 10 hours a month. That's all the business needs right now. But as that grows, she can either grow with the business or I can go and get a proper employee.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I'm building the business. And this is the advice that I would give anyone. Don't think, try and do as much as possible on your own. And then when you do feel like you need a hire, get them as cheaply as possible, like an intern maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody from another country where maybe the salaries aren't quite as high, or rope in your family. I had like my mum and my sister kind of coming,
Yeah.
like packing shoes, and all that kind of stuff. And then the first person I hired was randomly, I had a cleaner, and then she was really interested in what I was doing. And I said, I need somebody who can just do the returns for me, that returns administration, like 1 hour a week. So
Mm-hmm.
she would clean my house and then like do my return,
Oh
do
my
my return.
goodness.
So really, you should add people unless you've got like some kind of major VC funding where they want to like hire like, loads of staff and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Just go really slowly, and I still do that now. Like where we only have 4 full-time employees, including me in the team. And then the rest of them are made up with like another maybe full-time person, but made up of the merchandiser, buyer, a little bit of more marketing support, and some admin support and search engine optimization support. So that it's from different people, different
Mm-hmm.
areas of expertise, but that make up one person. But I don't need one person, I just need bits
Yeah.
of other people.
Yeah, that's great advice because I feel like people can be intimidated to hire. They know they need to outsource, but it's like, I don't know that I have the budget to. So knowing that you can be as flexible as like, okay, we can have this person come in 10 hours a month or something like that is so helpful. And I'm curious, what do you feel like was the most impactful hire that kind of helped your business scale in the beginning? What took the brand to the next level?
Well, outsourcing the fulfillment was one of the big things
Okay.
because if you're spending half your time packing and putting them into boxes and going to the post office and sending them out, then you're not working on growing your business because you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a real mundane admin
Mm-hmm.
packing job. So about a year into the business, I hired a fulfillment center that we still use to this day. So the fulfillment center do the warehousing, they do the goods in, and then they do all the picking, packing, and handling all the returns as well. And really, what you want to do is look at your week, what you're spending all your time on, and are there chunks of time that you could pay someone else to do faster, better, quicker, more accurate, more efficiently than you? And if how many hours is that? Like for fulfillment, that was a lot of hours out of my time. And I thought if I can just give all of that away, then I've got all of those hours back to
Mm-hmm.
go and do some marketing, to go and sell those shoes, to do all the stuff to grow the business. So that was big. But that decision shouldn't be made lightly because that is an expense. You've got to put all your shoes into warehousing and that is the thing. So some people do it themselves for as long as possible. It depends on what space you have and it kind of depends on you. If I lived on a big farm and I had a huge barn on my land that I could use, but I don't, the shoes were taking over the garage and just and my house. So
Yeah.
I had to outsource it.
Okay, great. Was it a 3PL?
Yeah, that's what we call yeah. I call
Okay,
them a fulfillment center, but it's a 3PL.
okay,
And now
perfect.
we've got a 3PL in the UK, and now they have a partner 3PL in the US.
Yeah,
So we have that as well now.
amazing. Okay, so now at this point, Calla's in over 60 countries, right? You guys are sold in over 60
90 now.
90, which is incredible, starting from no experience in footwear design to building this brand that's in over 90 countries. How did you guys get there? What were some like pivotal moments that kind of took the brand to that point? And I'm also curious, is this strictly direct to consumer or is this also wholesale? What is your business model?
No, so the business model is strictly direct to consumer.
Wow, okay.
I have tried. So when I say we're in over 90 countries, it means that women in over 90 countries have bought from our website. That's the way. I think we're at
Gotcha.
93. And we had a customer last week that found us on Instagram from Guatemala. She messaged us saying, "Do you ship to Guatemala?" And I was like, "All right, okay." Like people are desperate, for the
Yeah.
worst day hour in the world because there's not many people doing what we're doing. So yeah, so strictly direct to consumer. I have investigated wholesale. In fact, I had a meeting with a buyer from Nordstrom's a couple of weeks ago that had come across us. I actually don't know where. She just said we've come across your brand. So I think that eventually people, if you once you get like a critical mass and you get a certain number of followers on social
Hmm.
media and people are talking about you, then I think that buyers might come to you. But
Yeah.
she didn't want to buy shoes. She wanted to do drop shipping. So we do drop shipping with a few retailers in the UK, and then we'd be looking to do that in the US as well. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have us in some stores, especially in the US, because people want to try them on. Like returns are the biggest issue for footwear, and
Mm.
like it's horrific to be honest. It's so easy to buy and then just send them back with e-com. It's kind of too easy in a way, but there's an expectation that that's what you can do as a consumer. But if they could try them on in the store, then they'd know they fit, and then they'd just be able to buy online after that. But I do think that as we grow and we become more well known, then we'll start being able to go into those as well. So I've decided to get the popularity first, and then when we go to pitch to retailers, we can say, well, actually, we've already got thousands of buyers in your area that buy
Hmm.
online, so they're going to come into your store. It's kind of giving them more traffic into their store, which is what every retailer wants.
Yeah, and you know, building your direct to consumer side of your business, you know what works well, what doesn't. And so as when you start pitching too, you can, have a better, you can inform the buyers better about like, okay,
Oh yeah,
these have proven sales, like we know this is going to move. So yeah, totally. That'll be a
yeah.
great transition.
But the great thing about DCC is, yeah, like I say, you can be in Guatemala and you can order a pair of shoes. Like, so we can reach more women across the world by
Hmm.
doing it D2C. We can help more women. And if this business was around when I was looking for the shoes, I would have been like, hallelujah,
Yeah.
I found a
Yes.
random woman in the UK who's making these shoes.
Yes. Yeah. You have the solution to a lot of people's problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I want to go back to, I want to touch on this more about your expansion, but I also want to just kind of circle back to a product development question
Okay.
about fit and how you guys tackle fit, considering that everyone's foot is kind of different,
Oh, I
especially when
know,
you're
I know.
considering bunions, right? Like for the size, like you can kind of get close in length, but like how did you guys tackle that and kind of perfect a fit that works
I mean,
for most people?
there is no perfect like fit. We've done like the best that we can do at this time to fit the most feet. That's kind of our how I say it.
Mm-hmm.
So on our website, we have quite detailed instructions about how to measure your feet and how to measure the width.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain type of foot that they will be right for, and then there'll be certain types of feet that they're not right for. So we kind of distinguish that. So
Mm-hmm.
we're not quite there yet in terms of being able to service everybody, but we're clear about what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah.
And then one of my key hires a couple of years was well, we've always had really good customer services, but a dedicated customer services person was only probably put in place like 4 years ago. And that person is now full time because her role is so important to
Mm.
guide women who need the help through that buying process. And either saying to them, our shoes are right for you or they're not right for you. So she's kind of on chat and she's brilliant. I mean, we have some of the best customer service scores ever. Our customer service manager used to work for a company called Mothercare in the UK, and it's like it was a baby store, you know, where you go to buy your prams and your pushchairs and your car
Mm-hmm.
seats and stuff. So that kind of level of customer care is so important, you know, getting it
Yeah.
right for the customer. And then she used to work for a brand called Lush, and I don't think you have it in the US, but it's this amazing kind of soap.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
we
do you have
do.
it? Oh, right.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. Because that was a UK guy who set that up.
Uh-huh.
He used to work for Anita Broderick at the Body Shop, and he's an amazing guy. So she used to work for them as well. And again, they have like this really good customer service. So she's brilliant for guiding our customers through that process. And it's really important when somebody's buying from a fairly unknown brand to build that trust with them. Because
Yeah.
if they're going to go and spend $300 on a pair of shoes, they're not just going to drop it like that and think, go on then, have my money. It has to be a considered purchase, and the customer service level and the information that we provide on our website has to be the best that it can be. I would say that our website could be better. I'm trying to bring in some AI software at the moment that where
Mm-hmm.
you can just kind of scan your foot and then it will recommend what shoes might fit your feet. But yeah, it's tough. Footwear's tough anyway because your feet could look exactly like mine, but what make fits you comfortably or what you perceive as fitting you comfortably will be completely different to what I perceive.
Sure.
So because some people like loose fitting clothing or some people like tight fitting clothing,
Mm-hmm.
some people like can't deal with a tag just sticking out, you know.
Yeah.
Some people want pockets, some people don't, you know, and I think everybody has their own idiosyncrasies and
Yeah.
issues that are really hard to get by. So yeah, returns are an issue. That's why wholesale would be ideal, but so people like could try them on. But yeah, we're looking at all the different ways that we can bring that to the customer without them actually having to try them on. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's the issue with everything,
Oh
like
yeah,
bringing
same with
jeans.
clothing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, swimwear, you know, like they have crazy returns rates, just like we do, because you'll buy seven, you know, costumes and six of them don't fit, and the other one you're like, oh, go on, then I'll buy it. You know, it's tough. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, it's the same with us. So we do try and offer as much as possible. And I do a lot. So my feet, obviously, are the ones with the bunions. So I do a lot of videos, trying them on, showing them how they fit, you know, trying to build that confidence that with the customer. And that building that trust and that credibility is what will push people into buying rather than going, oh, these look like some Chinese copycat thing that it's going to be you know, made out of straw or something when it arrives.
Yeah.
It's really, you know, and I am half Chinese, so it's not a racist thing, but it's like it's just, and we get copied. Our site gets copied all the time
Wow.
now. Like apparently you can buy our shoes on some of these websites, and I'm like, I don't know where they're getting them from. Like,
Oh my goodness. And speaking of that, did you guys ever get any patents or anything like that for the design since it was something that was kind of a new concept?
so we explored it, but we didn't. So patterns are so easy to copy. I mean, you only have to change one little thing and then it's a new shoe. So we
Yeah.
just thought, and it's really expensive to do it. So we were advised to not go down that route because I only had £35,000 to start the business and I'd
Yeah.
borrowed that, you know, from the bank. So I didn't have £100,000 to do a pattern. And then you have to get a pattern in every country that you sell, you know, like
Hmm.
into. So what I do is it's more like a secret sauce, I would say, of technical and technical features plus material choice plus my understanding my own personal understanding of what fits, what doesn't fit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit like grandmother's secret recipe that doesn't need a pattern, but it's just got that mix of ingredients that works. So you can't copy it. So we have design rights, we have copyrights,
Okay.
and then I'm constantly pushing the innovation forward and looking at better materials so that we're never staying still. So it would be hard to copy. So yeah, so that's how we're doing it at the moment. I think that unless you literally can walk in the shoes and know how they fit, I think it's a hard concept to copy. And
Yeah.
we don't get it right all the time. Sometimes we've launched stuff and I've been like, I actually don't like that shoe. And then it'll get returned so much that it was pointless. It was wrong because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just get it wrong. And then we just go back to the drawing board or we knock that shoe out and go, that wasn't the right shoe.
Yeah.
It wasn't right for the market. So yeah, we don't get it right all the time. But
Yeah.
that's
And
fine. That's
sometimes
fine.
you have to take the risk. Like you never know, but you have to be okay with like, okay, we failed this time. We're going to start over again. Not even a failure, a learning lesson. Let's go back to the drawing board and, you
Oh
know.
God, so many learning lessons.
So I we talked about a little bit about your marketing strategy in the beginning with the blog. And obviously, as you grow, you have to, incorporate some new things. And so, from the starting point to now, what were some other things that you guys started to use to draw more attention to the brand and continue to grow? I saw that you guys have some celebrity press and have been featured, in different publications. And so, how did all of that come about?
So, yeah, I love the PR side of it, to be honest. And it's much easier to get PR than it ever has been before because the world of PR is changing. What you find is that most press won't get you more sales, but it does add to your credibility. It kind of, it's just another piece of the jigsaw puzzle. The biggest jumps we've had in revenue
Hmm.
or in customers have been from specific publications that seem to just hit our audience. One of them is the Daily Mail, which is an incredibly well-read tabloid newspaper in the UK. And when we were in that, I think we were in that with it was a big spread. They were featuring inventors of health-related products. It was a bit
Mm.
um it was kind of related, but there was a photograph of me, with the shoes. And we had like 10,000 visitors to the
Oh
website
my
that day.
goodness. Wow.
That day, oh my God, it was like, and we'd only been launched 6 months. And I sold out of all the shoes I
Oh,
had
so this is
straight
in the
away.
beginning.
It's in the beginning, right?
Oh, that's big.
And that's the power of PR. So then I realized, oh right, okay. I wish I'd not got that article then. I wish I'd got it now because I would have had more. I would have had more shoes.
More inventory to sell,
Um,
huh?
yeah. And then the second thing that has really blown up is going viral on TikTok and Instagram. Those two things have really, again, 10 to 20,000 visitors to the website one day. That's the
Wow.
kind of craziness. But all the other bits of PR we get by using there's in the UK, there's a Facebook closed group that somebody set up. I think she's an ex-journalist, and it's only for entrepreneurs and for journalists. But there are journalists from all the major press in the UK.
Wow.
So TV, radio, everyone. And they're always looking for stories. And they'll put a story out. We're looking for a woman who set up a company when she was pregnant or something. And you just go and pitch.
Hmm.
So it's very reactive. So I do a lot of reactive PR and have got I would say that the articles, like where you're in a magazine, I've got one here. Like if you can be in a full article rather than just a product placement. Product placements don't really get you anything
Yeah.
sales wise, particularly. But if you can like this, if you can be in an actual article with your
Oh, wow.
shoes,
That's a big
like a full
spread.
page, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what gets you the sales because people are more interested in the story than the products, especially products like ours. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it just looks like a pair of heels or just a pair of loafers.
Hmm.
It's not, you don't get the story behind why it's different.
Yeah. You have to educate and
Yeah, but there are a
share.
lot that, but there are lots of publications out there. It's incredibly competitive now. They're always looking for new stories. So absolutely go out there and pitch. And then the other one that I use right now is, I shouldn't really be giving out these secrets, but it's not.
We
No,
thank
it's
you
great.
for them.
Yeah. It's called, let me find it, Quoted, which is
Quoted.
Quoted. So if you go onto the Quoted website, you can pitch to a certain number of journalists for free, and literally everyone's on there. It's very US based, but there's also UK journalists on there as well. So you'll get journalists going on there who are looking for a specific story, and then you can pitch your story. So I think I got into HuffPost and Cosmo that
Oh,
way,
wow. That's amazing.
just by pitching when they said, we're looking for footwear that does this. And I just pitched to them.
Yeah.
So that's a really great way of getting your story across and also your products across. And
And so you
then,
never use a PR firm then?
right, okay, so that's how I've got some of the good PR, but I've also
Okay.
hired a PR firm um, because I wanted to get some product placement stuff as well.
Okay.
So I wanted to be in certain magazines just to kind of start getting that credibility. And also I wanted to be in front of stylists. So the PR agencies are brilliant for that. I mean, you can contact stylists yourself through Instagram and stuff like that, but actually we hired a PR firm in London where the stylists were going into their
Showroom.
office and showroom. So we did that for 12 months and it was great, but it's expensive and we stopped using them recently because
Hmm.
the ROI is tough to prove. But it did mean we got introduced to lots of stylists that we would have struggled getting in front of. And because we got introduced to a stylist, we got introduced to the stylist of Dame Helen Mirren. And because of that, the stylist had taken our shoes before for her, but never used them. But Helen Mirren was obviously aware of the brand because of that.
Hmm.
And then later went onto our website to buy herself.
Wow.
So
So she
she
became a
became
customer.
an actual a proper customer, not
Hmm.
a gifted one, and wore our loafers to Wimbledon last year.
Wow.
I
That's
know, I know.
big.
That was crazy. Like when you look in the press and then she's just everywhere wearing our loafers. That was probably one of the best moments I've ever had because I think that woman is amazing. She's like an
It is.
ambassador for everything that is real about, real women growing, aging gracefully, strong, opinionated without being rude. She's just an incredible woman. And
Yeah.
I really wanted her to wear my shoes. So
That's so
yeah.
amazing. So it was worth
So
it even for those 12 months because you have maybe a long-term customer in her, and then also the relationships and the awareness now with those
yeah,
stylists that pulled from you that can now
yeah.
come directly to the brand, right? If they need
It
anything.
yeah, it's finding the right it's finding the right PR firm for you because I had used some freelancers in the past and what I realized is to get the stuff into magazines, actually you can do that yourself quite easily because people are always looking for like human interest stories. It was the product placement and the stylist stuff that I didn't have the time to do and that freelancers can't always do. You kind of need that showroom and
Hmm.
they need to be in there and they're sending shoes out all the time on your
Yeah.
behalf. So it's definitely worth it for that. And I would want to do something similar in the US as well. But up to now, like I sent some shoes to the Oprah Daily magazine last week. They
That's a
asked
good
for them.
one.
Yeah, they asked for them for their footwear awards. Don't know if we won anything, but
It's in their
they
hands. So
well, I know that's it. Gosh, it's scary. But I don't even know how they found us, to be honest. So yeah, so a PR agency is good, but I think you need very specific objectives in mind, which I had. And also don't expect miracles and don't expect that you're going to suddenly sell millions of pairs, whatever product you are overnight, because that's just not how it works. You need a lot to back it up. So it's more of having several touch points that your customer may come across you in an article, and then they'll look on Instagram, and then they'll go on your website, and then they might get an email, and then their friend mentions you. It all comes together, doesn't it? You think about
hmm.
yourself, like why do you buy a product? Unless it costs you like $5 because TikTok told you to buy it, then if it's our product isn't that. It's a much more considered product. It's expensive by how other shoes compared to other shoes. So we need lots and lots of touch points in order to come together for the person to go, right, this is the right product for me. It's not
Hmm.
as simple as buying from Shein or whatever, it's just not,
Yeah.
it's not that. So yeah, so PR. And then the other piece of advice I would say is I'd absolutely look at affiliate marketing.
Okay.
We use AWIN in the UK and in the US, and it's fairly inexpensive. And it's where you have people who are publishing content who will link to your products on the whatever website or magazine, and then they get a kickback if anybody clicks through. So when you read those articles and it says this, people
Use
if you
my
click on a
code.
link, oh no,
Hmm.
well, yeah, or if you click on any links, we might get some money back for that.
Right, right.
And the way that the industry is going, the PR industry is going, is it's quite hard to get into magazines now unless you have that affiliate side of thing. Online, it is almost impossible. So most of those lists that you see online
Hmm.
have been curated from those affiliate platforms. They're not that journalists have not done their research. That's not true. That's not true for every magazine we've been in. A lot of them will have taken the shoes, they'll have tested them properly, they'll have tried them, but some of them are just 100% paid for.
Yeah.
So it's
Which works
just
as long as you're getting promoted. It's like
yeah.
whichever way you want.
Yeah. So definitely look at the affiliate side, either to
Yeah.
work with influencers or to get featured in magazines. And I think InStyle featured us, that was definitely through that affiliate platform because I'd never contacted them in America. That must have come through that.
And does the
Yeah.
affiliate platform that you mentioned, is it connecting publications with brands as well?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. So
okay?
they'll look for, so sometimes they might come across your brand and then they'll be like, oh, I might feature them in my magazine. And then they'll look to see if you have that affiliate connection with them, like say with whatever group, Hearst group or whoever you're going after that magazine, and you're more likely to get featured if you are an affiliate. So most of the lists online are all linked to Amazon, aren't they? And it's because of that affiliate, because
Hmm.
they're getting
The
because they're getting
commission.
paid, they're getting the commission. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And just one more question on this, on
yeah,
the Daily Mail feature, because this was in the beginning before
yeah.
there was like the budget for all of this. So how did that come about? Was that a pitch?
I think that was, well, actually, there was a freelancer that told me about the opportunity and followed it up. So that wasn't actually through me, that was through the freelancer I was working with. So I mean, they barely got me any coverage other than that, but that was a winner. Like it was luck. You
Mm.
know, you've got to put yourself out there. So freelancers can work, but don't expect miracles. That was just a miracle.
Yeah.
Like it just have. I mean, you can, unless you've got, some kind of influencer. So let's say Dame Helen Mirren was like my mum's best friend or something.
Hmm.
And I could have contacted Daily Mail and got Helen Mirren's wearing my shoes, and they would have featured it straight away anyway, because the Daily Mail loves all of that celebrity.
Hmm.
If it's just a normal story, it's making sure you've got your ears to the ground of what stories magazines are looking for. And at that time, there wasn't Quoted. I was telling you about before, the quoted.com,
Hmm.
and there wasn't this Facebook group either. So I had to use a freelancer or a PR agency to get, because they were contacting the agent saying, do you have any clients that have this particular story? Whereas now, actually, as individuals, you can go out and find those stories yourself, because journalists are time poor. They don't have the time to be Googling and searching and ask,
Hmm.
that's if they just don't have, so they'd sooner put it out there and get brands to approach them. The key is to reply quickly and have your little pitch ready.
Yeah.
So, and make it really quick. So head in the subject line, reply with, I set up a bunion shoe brand when I was pregnant and made redundant. If that's what they're looking for, put it in the subject
A
line, and
catchy
then
headline should be in the
really in
subject.
their subject line, so that when they get all their pictures, like 500 of them, yours
Hmm.
stands out because it's answering the specific query that they asked for. Because
Sure.
there's no point trying to shoehorn your pitch into something that they're not looking for. And
Hmm.
then in like one paragraph, go, this is the basics of the story. If you want any more information, contact me, because they don't need a full press release, because then they normally want to interview you.
And
They
they're not
normally
going to
want
read
to,
it. It's
and then
too
they'll have their
long.
own set of questions. Like you've got your own set of questions, Jasmine.
Yeah,
So you have your own direction of where you want the podcast to go. You know what your
sure.
listeners are interested in, and journalists are the same. So there's no point giving them everything. Just give them a bit and just go.
Hmm. And did you include like a photo in the body of the email or anything else that,
So what they like are really good headshot stuff, professional, clear, not like a selfie,
Yeah.
like a. So I got some, some photographs done of me. They're quite old now. I do look quite young and like
You
in a lot
still
of
look
them, which is
amazing.
fine.
I don't know what you look like back then, but you look great.
I definitely didn't have like wrinkles around my eyes. And then have really good high quality product shots as well. Especially it depends on the article because some of them want you and some of them want the product. So it just kind of depends. So definitely have really high quality product shots on white backgrounds that can be cut out. It's definitely worth investing in those and decent headshot type stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I always attach that if I think that it's relevant. But then if not, I just say as part of that I have this. I have like high quality images that
If
you can
needed.
use.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's great advice. Love that. So, after hearing your story, I know a whole bunch of people are going to be so inspired to get started and do something, create a niche fashion brand and put their foot out there, just hearing how you were able to build this from scratch. And so, I'm curious for those people who are like, okay, I want to get started, I want to solve a problem. What advice would you give them?
I think I would definitely approach it from a research point of view upwards. So most people want to start with the product and they're really excited about developing the product, particularly in fashion. You're like, right, I've decided it's going to be a blue dress or,
Hmm.
a black pair of heels or whatever. Well, actually, you need to start from the beginning of, what do people want? Like, how long, what factories am I going to use? Like, what types of customers am I going for? I think there is a process, and don't get too fixated on getting the product 100% right and then doing all the other stuff because it may be the product that you've created is not the right one. So depending on your ambitions as well, depends on, you know, some people are quite happy in a really tight niche selling what I don't know, braces for people who need their trousers being held up that are in crazy colors. It's like
Yeah.
so niche. And you could still make good money from a really, really tiny niche and just be comfortable with that and do your research into like the demand that's out there, the size of your market, and how that fits with your ambition. So for me, when I started the market research, I found out that it's a third of women who suffer from bunions in most Western countries. Now that is a big market, a third of women. And then out of that third of women, obviously not everybody going to be able to, are not going to want my shoes and not going to
Hmm.
be able to afford my shoes. So it does narrow it down. But even when I narrowed it down, I thought that's still a big market. That meets like what my ambitions are for the business. So that's fine
Sure.
for me. So definitely start with all your research. Make sure there's a demand before you start spending money on getting product made. And yeah, spend a lot of time getting that kind of in the groundwork done before you just launch into spending money because you want to spend as little as possible for as long as possible before you spend too much money. And then I'd also say just find other people who can give you advice. Like there's so many people now that you can reach out to anywhere in the world who are there to give you advice for free. I've advised loads of businesses that are wanting to start out. I have to give a caveat before like loads of people contact me. I kind of expect you to have done some of the work.
Yeah.
I'm not here to tell you my factory. I'm not here to tell you to write a marketing strategy for you. You
Hmm.
have to have done some of the work because if you're not willing to put that work in at the beginning, you shouldn't be running a business
Yeah.
because running a business is hard work. So, just be prepared for that. And then, as you said, Jasmine, be prepared for it to take a really long time. Like, don't give up your job. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to take whatever you think it's going to take you, double it, and then you're about right. Another piece of advice: be prepared to not really have any money for a very long time. There's those success stories that you hear out there, those unicorns are few and far between, and
Hmm.
all the money that you're going to make in the business, you're going to put right back into buying more products.
Yeah.
That's because that's just the way it is. So unless you looked out and you're what they call these days, a nepo baby that has got like
Or
a
the
crazy.
crazy viral success overnight
Yeah, yeah.
success, that which is not always sustainable, by the way.
It's not. And, and especially if you've got something that is in too much of a niche that's easily copyable.
Mm-hmm.
So, a bit like, I always think this with athleisure, you've got like 1 million,
It's crazy.
you can buy leggings from everybody in the world, but, or hoodies,
Yeah.
but not everybody is a white fox. Not everybody is, do you have white fox in the US?
It's
I
not
think
big here.
yeah, it's a very much
Yeah.
an Australian UK thing. Like if you go into a mall in the US, every teenager it's a sea of white box hoodies.
Yeah.
But those are those viral brands, and then behind those, you've got a lot that are just flailing around trying to to get noticed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, do expect to spend quite a long time, getting somewhere. And if you've got a brand that like Aloe or you can be replaced quite easily. The next it brand can come in because essentially you've not really created anything new. You've just created
Yeah.
a brand. You've not created a new product.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I think what you said about, having that niche is so important. And it's not worth even starting another clothing brand or another shoe company if you're not solving a problem or doing something differently. But a couple takeaways from what you just said a couple minutes ago. One, you have to have that endurance, right? Like you have to have that stick to itiveness. It's going to get hard, but you have to have a strong enough why to
Yeah,
keep going. And also don't expect any handouts. The work, learn, do your research. Yes, getting a coach and getting advice is so helpful, but you also have to be bought in and doing just as much work as well and not expecting someone to do the work for you. So that's so
yeah.
good.
If you're
uh,
expecting that, don't bother.
yeah.
That's what I would say because it's going to get too hard.
Oh
What I
yeah.
did actually in the early days is this is before the days of podcast. God, it's so old. But I just watched YouTube videos and what read blogs every day
Yeah.
of how to start a business and how to grow a business. So I just every single day I did that. And then these days people listen to podcasts, which
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah, you're learning
But
here.
so exactly, and people listening to that will be getting those key takeaways. So I taught myself how to do search engine optimization. This figuring out like the stuff I was telling you early on about using Pinterest and using forums
Hmm.
to seed the concept. All of that was just stuff that I learned online. So in the process of setting up your business until you've got the product in your hands to sell, you should be learning every day and as much as you can, learn something new every day.
Yeah, and there's so much information out there. There's no excuse that you can't figure something out. Like, not only are there paid resources, like there's a course on everything, but like you said, free information, YouTube. And you're talking 10 years ago. So imagine now the amount of content that's out there that people can just, glean from and learn and implement in their business. So it's easier now, I think, more than ever, maybe more competitive because more people are able to figure it out, but easier to, I think, find out how to do it and how to get it made.
Yeah, but you've hit the nail on the head. Not everybody is willing to put that work in. So
Hmm.
if you're willing to put that work in, remember that you're special because like 9 out of 10 people won't put that work in.
Yeah, that's good. So what's next for Kella? What can we expect in the next coming months, years? What do you guys have up your sleeve?
Well, at the moment, more than half of my revenue is to the United States.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know, and it's mad. And it's quite organic. That's kind of via, bits of PR and Instagram, TikTok, that kind of stuff, and search engine optimization. So there's a huge opportunity for us to really grow there. And obviously it's much bigger than the UK. It's just easy to think of your own territory
Yeah.
and not think about others. So I really, really want to reach more people in the US and tell them about Calla. So we're kind of going to double down on our efforts there and possibly hold some stock in the US. And it's a bit weird at the moment because no one knows what Donald Trump's going to do next with tariffs and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So I'm kind of aware that things could change any day. But I'd really love to do strategically. I think that that's the best place for Calla because I just think that there's definitely more room for growth there. And then following that, looking at other territories where we're doing well, like we're doing well in Australia and in Canada as well.
Hmm.
So it's kind of just taking what we do and have done well in the UK and just replicating that in other countries.
So for everyone listening that wants to, get their hands on some Calla shoes or, just stay in touch with what you're doing, where can they find you?
I think that the easiest way to keep in touch or to look is on our Instagram profile. And I do regular lives and loads of stories and all that kind of stuff on there. So I'm always updating people. So go on there. And, if you're an aspiring footwear brand and you do want to reach out to me and you've done a lot of the legwork already, you're willing to put that hard work in there, I am absolutely open to like doing mentoring or, half an hour of my time just to give you like whatever you need, a nudge in the right direction for the right people, especially if you're a female founder. Nothing against men, but I'm really keen on bringing more women into functional fashion because we're the ones that have to wear the clothing or the footwear or the underwear or whatever it is. And I think that only women have the insight into really understanding what the women want. So if you're a aspiring female footwear designer and you want a bit of help, then do reach out to me. But you can DM me on Instagram. I check
Yes.
everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And you guys take advantage of this opportunity if you have done the work. I find that people do not take advantage of the people around them, and this is such an incredible like resource. A podcast like this episode alone, you can learn so much and use so much of this to start building something great. So
Hopefully.
yes. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for your insights and sharing more about your story with us. We're definitely going to go head over to Calla Shoes as soon as we get off of this episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.